Every single day, we are conditioned to believe that when someone treats us poorly, we only have two real options. We are told we either have to lace up our gloves and fight back, or we have to fold, swallow our pride, and just take it. We view it as a strict ultimatum: become the aggressor or become the doormat. But here is the truth you need to hear right now. Both of those options are a trap, carefully designed to keep you stuck. When you choose to fight back, you are screaming into a void, expecting a person who doesn't care about your feelings to suddenly have an epiphany. When you fold, you are slowly erasing yourself to keep someone else comfortable. Smart people look at this broken dynamic and realize the only winning move is to refuse to play the game entirely. They choose a powerful third option. They completely disengage. They realize that wrestling in the mud with a pig only gets you dirty, and the pig actually likes it. They don't waste their precious mental energy trying to debate, argue, or fix a toxic person, because they accept a harsh reality that psychology and research prove over and over again. You absolutely cannot change someone who sees nothing wrong with their own behavior. The biggest mistake we make is pouring endless energy into a black hole of empathy, assuming that if we just love someone harder, give them one more chance, or explain our hurt in the perfect way, they will finally wake up and treat us right. It is an exhausting, heartbreaking cycle, because empathy without strict boundaries isn't kindness at all. It is pure self-destruction. You end up setting yourself on fire just to keep someone else warm, and you lose your own peace of mind in the process. This kind of toxic dynamic doesn't announce itself with a loud warning siren or a bright neon sign. Toxic people don't walk into your life exposing their worst traits on day one. Instead, they operate through quiet, repeated patterns that blend into the background of daily life. They use manipulation to make you question your own memory of events. They shift the blame so seamlessly that you end up apologizing for things they did, and they possess a total, stubborn inability to ever look you in the eye and say, "I was wrong, and I am genuinely sorry." Because these traits are hidden, you don't realize the damage is being done until you are already deep in the trenches with them. It never starts with blatant, obvious cruelty. If someone was monstrous to you right from the very beginning, you would walk away without a second thought. Toxic behavior is much more calculated than that. It always starts incredibly small, flying just low enough under your radar to make you doubt your own instincts. It shows up as a sharp, passive-aggressive joke at your expense during dinner, something that stings a little too deeply, but is quickly brushed off when they tell you they were just kidding. It manifests as a fake, hollow apology that somehow turns into an accusation, ending with the classic phrase, "I'm sorry you feel that way, but you are just being way too sensitive and overreacting." Suddenly, instead of them addressing their bad behavior, the entire conversation shifts to analyzing your reaction. You start to second-guess yourself, wondering if maybe you really are the problem. This is exactly how the poison takes root. It acts just like a slow, silent vine creeping up a brick wall. It grows so gradually, inch by inch, day by day, that you barely even notice it happening. You rationalize the small slights, excuse the minor disrespect, and tolerate the subtle put-downs. Then, one day, you finally wake up, look around, and realize you are completely wrapped up in a toxic web, suffocating and wondering how you let things get this far. We spend so much of our lives waiting for a massive, undeniable smoking gun before we finally give ourselves permission to leave a bad situation. We tell ourselves that unless someone yells at us, betrays us in a huge way, or leaves physical evidence of their toxicity, we have no right to walk away. We demand a mountain of courtroom-level proof, just to justify protecting our own peace. But while you are sitting around waiting for that definitive proof, you are completely ignoring the most accurate detector you own, your own body. Words lie all the time. People can look you right in the eye and say exactly what you want to hear, spinning beautiful promises and using smooth explanations to cover up their terrible behavior. But while their words are lying to your face, your nervous system is telling you the absolute truth. If you constantly feel emotionally drained, hypervigilant, or subtly unsafe whenever you are around a specific person, you need to stop overanalyzing the situation and start trusting your gut. You don't need a logical, written-out explanation for why someone makes you feel anxious. Your body is already doing the math for you. This isn't just a vague, mystical concept. It is pure human biology. Long before your logical brain can catch up and piece together the subtle manipulation or the quiet mind games someone is playing, your nervous system has already detected the danger. It registers the tense shift in the room, the passive-aggressive tone, and the predatory patterns that your conscious mind tries to excuse away. When your stomach knots up, your chest tightens, or you feel a wave of sheer exhaustion the moment someone texts you, that is your survival instincts screaming at you. Your biology knows you are in an unhealthy environment before you can even articulate why. Yet, what do most of us do? We gaslight ourselves. We override our own physical alarms and say, "Oh, I'm just being paranoid," or "They didn't mean it that way, I'm just tired." By doing that, you are actively choosing to believe the smooth-talking words of someone who hurts you over the literal survival mechanisms built into your own DNA. To break free from this trap, you have to realize that acknowledging this internal warning system doesn't mean you have to villainize the other person. You don't need to drag them through the mud, brand them as an absolute monster, or stage a massive dramatic confrontation to justify your departure. This isn't about diagnosing them or proving to the world that they are an evil person. It is simply about recognizing that their specific behavioral patterns are deeply toxic to your personal well-being. It is about shifting the focus off of them and putting it entirely on yourself. You are allowed to look at a relationship and say, whether this person means to hurt me or not, the impact they have on my mental health is destructive, and I am choosing to stop participating in it. You don't need their agreement. You don't need them to admit they are wrong, and you don't need a final dramatic blow-up. Your body gave you the signal, and that signal is all the permission you will ever need to quietly step away, close the door, and reclaim your life. We have been conditioned from a very young age to believe that keeping the peace means keeping everyone else happy at our own expense. Because of this, we carry around this deeply ingrained, heavy guilt that tells us setting a boundary is an act of aggression. We genuinely worry that saying no makes us difficult, cold, or entirely selfish. But let's clear up the confusion right now. Setting a boundary is not mean. It is not an attack, and it is not a punishment. It is simply a statement of what you need to stay safe, healthy, and sane. If someone genuinely cares about you, your no will never be viewed as a threat. It will be viewed as information on how to love and respect you better. The absolute gold standard rule to live by for the rest of your life is this: the only people who get deeply upset, offended, or angry when you finally set a boundary are the exact people who were benefiting from you having absolutely none. Take a second to really let that sink in, because it changes everything. When you live your life with no boundaries, you are an open highway for anyone who wants to use your time, drain your energy, or dump their emotional baggage onto you. To a user or a manipulator, your lack of boundaries is the best thing that ever happened to them. The very moment you step up and place a limit on what you will tolerate, you change the rules of the game, and they will immediately fight back. Healthy people, the ones who genuinely respect you, don't throw tantrums when you need space, change your mind, or say no. They adjust, they understand, and they give you room to breathe. Toxic people, on the other hand, absolutely despise boundaries. They will mask their anger as hurt feelings, guilt trip you into thinking you've done something terrible, or accuse you of being unsupportive. But they aren't actually sad that you hurt them. They are furious because they just lost their unrestricted access to you. To them, your boundary represents a loss of control, and control is the only thing they care about. The biggest mistake we make when we try to implement boundaries is thinking that we are trying to change or fix the other person's behavior. We approach it like a lecture or an ultimatum, saying things like, "You can't talk to me like that anymore," or "You need to stop treating me this way." But that is not a boundary. That is a rule, and you cannot enforce rules on someone else's behavior. A real bulletproof boundary is never about controlling them. It is entirely about controlling yourself. It sounds like this: if you continue to raise your voice and talk to me like that, I am going to hang up the phone and leave the room. See the massive shift in power there? You aren't begging them to change their tone. You aren't waiting for permission, and you aren't arguing about what is fair. You are stating exactly what you will do to protect your own well-being. You are leaving their behavior up to them, but you are taking total, absolute ownership of your own choices and your own peace of mind. The absolute biggest trap we fall into after finally gathering the courage to set a boundary is feeling like we owe the other person a massive, detailed trial defense. We think we need to sit them down and hand over a metaphorical 12-slide PowerPoint presentation, explaining exactly why we are tired, why we need space, or why their behavior hurt us. We pour our hearts out, thinking that if we can just find the perfect combination of words, they will finally have an epiphany, understand our perspective, and give us their blessing to protect our peace. But you need to understand this right now. Smart people state their boundary exactly once, and then they immediately pivot to action. They don't beg to be understood, they don't over-explain, and they don't look for approval. The very moment you start defending, justifying, or debating your boundary with a toxic person, you have already lost the game. You have handed them the remote control to your emotional state, and they will use it. You have to realize that toxic people do not argue the way healthy people do. When you get into a disagreement with a healthy person, the goal is resolution, understanding, and finding a way to move forward together. When you get into an argument with a toxic person, their only goal is winning, dominance, and keeping you hooked in the chaos. They don't care about your logic, they don't care about your feelings, and they certainly don't care about your reasons. To them, your explanations are just ammunition. When you give them a long list of reasons for your boundary, you are actually giving them a map of your vulnerabilities. They will look at your reasons and immediately start picking them apart, twisting your words, and throwing counter-arguments at you until you are so exhausted and confused that you end up abandoning your own boundary just to make the arguing stop. They also have a brilliant, highly effective script for flipping the script the moment you call out their behavior. The second you stand up for yourself, they will instantly play the victim and hit you with a dramatic phrase like, "Oh, so I guess I'm just a terrible person then," or "Wow, I guess everything is always my fault and you're completely perfect." It is a calculated move designed to make you feel guilty. They want you to panic, drop your boundary, and start reassuring them that they aren't a bad person. The moment they pull that stunt, you have to drop the rope. Do not chase them down into that rabbit hole. Don't say, "No, that's not what I meant," and don't try to clarify your point. When they say, "I guess I'm just a terrible person," let them sit in it. Your response shouldn't be words, it should be absolute silence. Silence is quite literally your greatest, most lethal weapon against manipulation, because it completely cuts off their supply. A toxic person thrives on your reaction. They need your anger, your tears, your explanations, and your defense to keep the fire burning. They cannot manipulate what you do not feed. When you state a clean, direct boundary like, "I can't commit to this right now," or "I need some space this week," and then refuse to offer a single sentence of justification, you take away their power. They will push, poke, prod, and try to start a fight to get you to engage. But when you meet that chaos with a wall of calm silence, they have absolutely nothing to work with. You do not owe anyone an explanation for protecting your own mental health, and smart people know that refusing to play the game is the only way to win it. The moment you decide to finally stand up, dust yourself off, and start recognizing your own worth, a very strange and uncomfortable shift happens in your social circle. You might expect the people around you to celebrate your newfound confidence and cheer you on, but the reality is often much darker. When you start valuing yourself, the people who relied on your self-doubt, your people-pleasing tendencies, and your constant compliance will suddenly start falling away like autumn leaves. They will look at your new boundaries and your refusal to accept mistreatment, and they will hit you with a phrase designed to make you feel guilty. You've changed. They will say it with a shake of their head, a tone of deep disappointment, or a cold distance meant to punish you. But when they throw that phrase at you, I want you to look them dead in the eye and smile inside. Because what they are actually saying when you strip away the manipulation is, "I am furious because you stopped letting me walk all over you. And I no longer have free, unrestricted access to exploit your kindness." Your growth is an absolute direct threat to their comfort zone, because they can only thrive when you are small, quiet, and easily managed. For years, you may have been operating under the massive lie that shrinking yourself, suppressing your voice, and swallowing your own feelings to keep the peace is an act of love. You convince yourself that if you just stay quiet, accept the blame, or tolerate the disrespect, you are being the bigger person and keeping the relationship alive. But let's call it what it radically is. Keeping the peace at the expense of your own self-worth isn't peace at all. It is a brutal act of self-abandonment. Every single time you stay silent just to avoid an argument with a toxic person, you are actively choosing to betray yourself just to keep a manipulator comfortable. You are trading your internal sanity for an external, fake illusion of harmony. You have to realize that you cannot love someone into treating you well. You cannot fix a broken, manipulative person by simply pouring more of your heart, your time, and your energy into a black hole of one-sided effort. You cannot love them harder, forgive them faster, or sacrifice more of your identity to force an epiphany on someone who is deeply committed to misunderstanding you. We waste years of our lives trapped in an exhausting, heartbreaking cycle of hope and hurt because we believe our sacrifice has the power to change people. But the hard, unvarnished truth of human psychology is that people do not change because you are suffering for them. They do not change because you are crying yourself to sleep or losing your mind trying to accommodate their flaws. They change if and only when they look at their own reflection, realize they are the problem, and make a conscious, independent decision to do the painful inner work required to fix themselves. And that decision is entirely out of your hands. You are completely powerless over their evolution, but you have absolute total power over your own life. It is time to stop playing the martyr, stop acting as an unpaid rehabilitation center for emotionally immature adults, and start pouring all that wasted love and effort right back into yourself. The relationship you have with yourself is the only truly permanent one you will ever have, and it is time to start acting like it. You have to make a radical, unapologetic choice to choose yourself. Set your own strict terms for who gets access to your energy, and make your peace of mind completely and utterly non-negotiable. If a relationship requires you to doubt your reality, walk on eggshells, or minimize your achievements just to keep the other person from throwing a tantrum, then that relationship is too expensive for your budget. Walking away from people who demand that you remain small isn't a failure, and it isn't a loss. It is the ultimate victory of self-respect. Let them talk, let them call you cold, and let them leave. Surround yourself exclusively with people who are secure enough to celebrate your boundaries, and lock the door permanently on anyone who expects you to burn yourself down just to keep them warm. At the end of the day, protecting your peace isn't a luxury. It is a survival strategy. You can spend your entire life waiting for toxic people to understand your worth, or you can start enforcing it yourself. Reclaiming your life begins the exact moment you stop arguing, stop over-explaining, and start trusting your own boundaries. You don't need anyone's permission to walk away from spaces where you are tolerated rather than celebrated. If you are ready to stop abandoning yourself just to keep the peace for others, make a commitment to your future self right now. Hit that subscribe button, save this video for the next time your resolve wavers, and drop a comment below sharing the one boundary you are committing to enforce today. Your peace is non-negotiable. Start treating it that way.